General Hospital spoilers. Kristina redirects revenge rage towards Molly after Ava is acquitted. Davis sisters' war reignites. General Hospital, GH. Spoilers suggest that the sweet and tender moments between Kristina Corinthos Davis, Kate Mancy, and Molly Lansing Davis, Kristen Vaginos, as of late have felt like the calm before the storm. While they were at each other's necks merely a couple of weeks ago, the passing of their sister, Sam McCall, Kelly Monaco, has helped them put their bickering on the back burner. Not only because they need each other during this time, but also for the sake of their mother, Alexis Davis, Nancy Lee Grahn, and her grief. During the Wednesday, November 20 episode, Alexis was in her office frantically searching for Sam's will with Molly, when it was brought up that she'd be testifying for the defense in the Ava Jerome, Maura West, trial for the Metro Court accident that took the life of baby Irene/Adela. It's not hard for fans to put two and two together on this one, as there's a good chance that Ava could be acquitted based on something Molly says while on the stand. While Kristina is revenge-hungry and wants Ava to pay, the truth of the matter is that her accident in Ava's Metro Court suite was just that, an accident. Ava is a lot of things, but she didn't want any of this to happen or for Kristina and Molly's baby to pass away. Still, as GH viewers know, there's no reasoning with Kristina at this point. She wants justice for baby Irene/Adela's demise, and she will not stop until she feels as if it is served. With that being said, will Kristina end up refocusing her revenge energy toward her sister once Ava is cleared of the charges? As Kristina is not in the loop about Molly's testimony, to begin with, she'll feel as if Molly was trying to pull a fast one, especially in light of Molly's father, Rick Lansing, Rick Hurst, being Ava's lawyer and calling her to the stand. Kristina may believe that this testimony stunt was only another way for Molly to dish out some revenge for her wanting to keep the baby after it was born, and not saying anything. In fact, if Molly ends up partially blaming Kristina for the baby's passing while on the stand, in front of everyone, it'll be like rubbing salt in Kristina's already massive wound. General Hospital spoilers suggest there will be plenty of ups and downs in Ava's trial. However, the true chaos will explode if and when she is acquitted. How ugly will things get between the Davis sisters? If Ava ends up a free woman, Kristina is bound to have a raging meltdown. The courtroom was abuzz with a mixture of tension and relief as the verdict came in, not guilty. Ava Jerome's name had been dragged through the mud for weeks, but with a sly smile and a confident air, she left the courtroom victorious. Her lawyer, Scott Baldwin, had pulled off what seemed impossible, discrediting the prosecution's weak evidence. For Ava, it was a win, but for Kristina Corinthos Davis, it was a slap in the face. Kristina sat in the gallery, her fists clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. She had been banking on Ava facing justice, blaming her for a series of personal and family-related grievances that had bubbled under the surface for years. Ava's acquittal felt like another victory for the people in her life who always seemed to skate, while Kristina herself was constantly fighting for respect and recognition. As Ava strutted past, her perfume leaving a trail of mockery in its wake, Kristina's blood boiled. But her rage wasn't entirely directed at Ava. It was as though every unresolved issue she had ever faced had been magnified by this trial. And as she stormed out of the courthouse, her mind latched onto the one person she always seemed to clash with when life became unbearable: Molly Lansing Davis. Seeds of resentment. The rivalry between the Davis sisters had been simmering for years. While their mother, Alexis Davis, often worked overtime trying to play referee, there was no denying that Kristina and Molly had a habit of butting heads. Molly was the golden child, perfect grades, a successful career, and now, a picture-perfect family with her partner, T.J. Ashford, and their new baby. Kristina, meanwhile, had struggled to find her footing. While she was finally making progress with her LGBTQ+ youth shelter, the accolades and support she hoped to receive from her family often felt hollow. Molly's recent dismissal of Kristina's work during a family dinner had been the final straw. Kristina had passionately shared a story about one of her shelter residents finally getting off the streets, but Molly had waved it off, pivoting the conversation to her own legal achievements. Kristina had laughed it off at the time, but the wound was still fresh. As she paced through the courthouse parking lot, her mind raced. Why is it always Molly? Why does she always get everything so easily while I have to fight for every scrap? A brewing confrontation. Kristina didn't have a plan when she arrived at Molly's house later that evening, but her emotions were too loud to ignore. The warm glow of the living room light shone through the windows, and Kristina could hear laughter from inside. She hesitated for a moment, almost turning back, but the pent-up frustration won out. She knocked harder than she intended, and the laughter abruptly stopped. Molly opened the door, her face shifting from pleasant surprise to cautious concern. "Kristina, what's going on?" Kristina stepped inside without an invitation, her movements jerky and tense. Molly closed the door, frowning. "You could have called," Molly said, her tone neutral but edged with irritation. "What's wrong?" Kristina whirled around, her eyes blazing. "What's wrong? Seriously? Ava walks free after everything she's done, and you don't think anything's wrong." Molly crossed her arms, her lawyer demeanor kicking in. "Kristina, I get that you're upset, but Ava's trial isn't exactly my responsibility." "It's not about the trial," Kristina snapped. "It's about you. It's always about you, Molly." Molly blinked, taken aback. "What are you talking about?" Kristina threw her hands in the air. "You act like you're so perfect all the time. Like your life is this shining example the rest of us should follow. But guess what? Not everyone gets handed the world on a silver platter." Molly's mouth fell open in shock. "Handed? Are you serious? I've worked my butt off to get where I am." "Yeah, because you've always had Mom and everyone else paving the way for you." Kristina fired back. "Do you know how hard it's been for me to prove myself? To get people to take me seriously? And you sitting there at dinner, dismissing my work like it's nothing." "Oh, come on," Molly interrupted, her voice rising. "I wasn't dismissing your work. I was proud of you, Kristina. But maybe if you weren't so defensive all the time, you'd see that." The words cut deep, but Kristina was too far gone to let them sink in. "Defensive? You don't get it, Molly. You've never had to fight for anything the way I have. And now, when I finally have something that matters, you can't even let me have that." Molly shook her head, exasperated. "This isn't about me, Kristina. This is about you refusing to take responsibility for your own life. Ava's acquittal has nothing to do with me. Your insecurities have nothing to do with me. Maybe it's time you stop blaming everyone else for your problems." The room fell silent, the weight of Molly's words hanging heavily in the air. For a moment, Kristina looked like she might lash out again, but instead, her shoulders sagged. Her anger was spent, leaving only exhaustion in its place. "I'm not blaming you," Kristina said quietly. I need someone to understand how hard this is for me." Molly's expression softened slightly, but her guard was still up. "Then tell me that, Kristina. Don't come in here and start a fight. I want to be there for you, but you make it so hard sometimes." Kristina looked away, swallowing the lump in her throat. She wanted to believe Molly, to accept her support, but years of feeling overshadowed were hard to shake. The war reignites. The fragile truce didn't last long. Over the next few days, Tensions between Kristina and Molly continued to rise. Kristina, still simmering with resentment, found small ways to lash out. Snide comments, pointed jabs during family gatherings. Molly, for her part, wasn't innocent either, her patience wearing thin as she grew tired of Kristina's bitterness. The rest of the Davis family was caught in the crossfire. Alexis tried to mediate, but her own struggles with sobriety and legal troubles left her with little energy to referee. Sam, always the peacemaker, found herself torn between her sisters, unable to fully support one without alienating the other. Meanwhile, Kristina's feelings of isolation only deepened. She began spending more time at her shelter, throwing herself into her work in an attempt to prove her worth. But the nagging voice in the back of her mind, the one that constantly compared her to Molly, refused to be silenced. As Thanksgiving approached, the Davis sisters were forced to come together for a family dinner. The tension was palpable, the unspoken grievances hanging over the table like a storm cloud. And when Kristina and Molly inevitably clashed over something trivial, the argument quickly escalated, threatening to tear the family apart once again. A glimmer of hope. Despite the turmoil, there was still hope for reconciliation. Deep down, both Kristina and Molly cared for each other, their love buried beneath layers of resentment and misunderstanding. Whether they could find a way to bridge the gap remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: the Davis sisters' war was far from over.